They ran because he wanted them to run. In the white silence of the Eastern Front, a single rifle cracked, once, clean and deliberate. A German soldier fell forward into the snow, dead before his body understood it had been hit. The man beside him froze, then turned and ran. He made it 50 meters, then a second shot rang out. He dropped hard, face down, arms spread, another shape swallowed by winter. The third man escaped, and the sniper let him go. Not because he missed, not because he hesitated, but because that man, terrified and breathing, was worth more alive than dead. On the Eastern Front, survival was arithmetic. Every bullet counted, every movement was measured, and every mistake was fatal. The Red Army trained its snipers to kill efficiently, silently, without emotion. But one Soviet sniper broke that rule. He learned that fear could be shaped, controlled, and weaponized. He learned that letting the enemy escape could bring him far more targets than pulling the trigger ever would. This is the story of the Soviet sniper who turned mercy into a trap. Before he was a hunter, he was just another conscript. He came from a small town swallowed by forests and frozen rivers, a place where winter arrived early and left late. As a boy, he learned to shoot not for sport, but for food. Rabbits in the snow, birds on bare branches. His father taught him to breathe slowly, to wait, to never rush a shot. Miss once, and the forest would remember. Miss twice, and you would go hungry. When Germany invaded the Soviet Union in the summer of 1941, that patience became valuable overnight. The Wehrmacht advanced fast, entire divisions collapsed, cities burned, villages vanished. Millions of Soviet soldiers were killed or captured in the opening months. The Red Army needed men who could slow the advance, even if only for minutes. Snipers became one of the few tools that could bleed a mechanized army without tanks or air support. He volunteered. Sniper school was short and brutal. There was no romance in it, no speeches, no medals. They were taught how to crawl without leaving a trail, how to build a firing nest from mud and rags, how to lie motionless for hours while insects crawled across their faces, how to wait until a man filled the scope, not just stood near it. Most important of all, they were taught discipline. You shoot to kill. You do not shoot to scare. You do not waste bullets. At least, that was the rule. He was sent to the front near Smolensk, then later toward the long, grinding hell that would become Stalingrad. The terrain was open, scarred by shell craters and broken trees. Snow came early that year. It flattened the world, erased color, and made every movement visible. At first, he shot like everyone else. A helmet at the edge of a trench, a shadow crossing a road, a machine gun crew setting up too close to the tree line. One shot, one body. No drama, no celebration, just numbers in a notebook, quietly added at night. But after weeks of killing, he began to notice patterns. German patrols moved predictably. Officers walked differently from enlisted men. Medics ran without rifles. Messengers took the same routes day after day. And most importantly, when one man fell, the others reacted the same way every time. They panicked. They dropped to the ground. They ran for cover. They shouted warnings that echoed down the line. Fear traveled faster than bullets. The first time he let a man go, it was an accident. A German runner broke from cover, sprinting toward the rear with a satchel bouncing against his hip. The sniper tracked him through the scope, finger tightening, waiting for the perfect moment. But another soldier stepped into the frame. A clean shot. The wrong target fell. The runner vanished behind a ridge.
That night, the sniper expected punishment. Instead, something else happened. The next morning, German artillery hammered the exact position where the runner had fled from. The shelling was precise, measured, It lasted for hours. The runner had reported a sniper, and command had reacted. The sniper survived by crawling out before dawn, but the lesson stayed with him. One survivor had triggered a response far larger than any single kill. One terrified man had pulled fire, officers, and resources into the open. That was when the idea formed. He stopped shooting immediately. For 2 days, he watched. German units relaxed. Heads lifted higher above trenches. Men lingered in the open. Confidence crept back in. On the 3rd day, he fired again. 1 shot, 1 kill, always the same type of target. A man in the middle of a group. Never the last, never the fastest. And always someone escaped. The survivors ran back, shouting about a ghost, about a Soviet sniper who appeared from nowhere, about comrades dropping dead without warning. Fear spread unevenly, unpredictably. German officers began ordering counter-sniper teams into the area. That was exactly what he wanted. Counter-snipers were dangerous, but they were also arrogant. They believed skill could beat patience. They believed experience made them invisible. They moved carefully, but not carefully enough, and they always searched where the last shot had come from. The sniper had already moved. He let the Germans think they were hunting him. In reality, he was shaping their movements, pulling them into ground he had already measured, already memorized. He knew where they would stop to scan, where they would set up their scopes, where they would light cigarettes once they thought they were safe. Sometimes he waited all day for a single shot. Sometimes he waited 3 days. When he fired, he made it count. German reports began to change. What started as isolated sniper incidents became zones marked as cursed. Patrols refused to enter certain stretches of road. Officers demanded artillery support before moving through open ground. Entire units altered their routes, slowing the advance by hours, then days. All because of a man who did not always pull the trigger. His fellow soldiers noticed. They joked about it at first, about how he was going soft, about how many kills he was wasting. But when German attacks stalled, when fewer shells landed on their trenches, the jokes stopped. Command noticed too. An officer questioned him once, quietly, in a dugout lit by a single candle. Why let them run? Why risk discovery? Why not finish the job? The sniper answered simply, "Dead men teach nothing. Living men spread fear." He was not spared from danger. German counter-snipers came close more than once. Bullets snapped inches above his head. Once a round punched through his scope, shattering the glass and slicing his cheek. He did not scream. He did not move. He waited until nightfall, then crawled away with blood freezing against his skin. Each escape made him more careful, more selective. He began choosing his survivors deliberately. Young soldiers, nervous ones, men who ran badly, men who looked over their shoulders as they fled. They were the ones who talked, the ones who exaggerated, the ones who told stories that grew darker with each retelling. A sniper who never missed, a sniper who could see through snow, a sniper who chose who lived. By winter, German morale in his sector had visibly changed. Men dug deeper, officers stayed back, patrols moved only at night, and even then quickly. The front slowed to a crawl. But the sniper knew something else was coming. The Germans would adapt. They always did. As the fighting intensified and Stalingrad turned into a slaughterhouse of brick dust and blood, German tactics shifted. They sent decoys, they used civilians, they fired blindly into suspected nests, and eventually they sent one sniper in particular. a professional, someone patient enough to wait him out. The Soviet sniper felt it before he saw it. The air changed, the careless movement stopped, the random fear vanished, replaced by something colder, more focused. Someone was watching him now, not running, not panicking. Someone who would not escape. And for the first time since he began letting men live, the sniper understood that his game had reached its limit. Because the next man he spared might not run, he might stay. And if he stayed, only one of them would walk away. The snow fell heavier that night, covering tracks, muting sound, erasing evidence. Somewhere ahead, a German sniper lay just as still, just as patient, learning his habits, counting his shots, waiting for a mistake. The Soviet sniper adjusted his position by inches, slowed his breathing, and made a decision. Tomorrow, he would not let anyone escape. Not anymore. Because the hunter had finally met another hunter, and the rules were about to change.
Morning did not come gently. It crept in as a pale gray smear behind the smoke, turning ruined walls into shapes again, turning silence into expectation. The snow from the night before lay unbroken, too clean, too perfect. That worried him. Snow remembered everything. The Soviet sniper did not move. He had shifted positions before dawn, just enough to break the pattern. Not far. A careless move would leave tracks. A bold move would draw fire. Inches mattered now. He pressed his cheek against the frozen wood of his rifle stock and waited. Across the shattered ground, somewhere among the rubble and shadows, the German sniper waited too. Neither man fired. Hours passed. In this kind of duel, the first shot was rarely the killing one. It was the mistake that followed that mattered. A twitch, a breath taken too fast, a scope glinting for half a second in weak winter light. The Soviet sniper scanned slowly, not with his rifle, but with his eyes. He looked for wrongness, a line too straight, a shadow that did not match the sun, a shape that belonged to a man pretending to be something else. Nothing. The Germans had learned. No decoys today, no runners, no careless patrols. The sector felt dead, but it wasn't. It was holding its breath. He remembered his father's voice from years ago, whispering in the woods, "When the forest goes quiet, something is watching you." A flicker caught his attention, not movement, reflection. For an instant, a shard of light blinked and vanished, too precise to be random. He did not raise his rifle. He did not react. He simply memorized the spot. A broken wall, 3 stories collapsed into one, a dark hollow behind a slab of concrete. That was where the German was. He waited another hour before doing anything. Patience had always been his weapon. Today, it would be his shield. Slowly, painfully slowly, he shifted his rifle, aligning it not with the hollow, but with the ground beneath it. He adjusted his position again, pressing deeper into the dirt, forcing his body to ignore the cold gnawing at his joints. He fired. The shot punched into the rubble below the German position, kicking up stone dust and echoing down the street. Silence followed. If the German sniper panicked, he would reveal himself. If he returned fire too quickly, he would give away his angle. Nothing happened. The German sniper did not move. That told him everything. This was not a hunter driven by fear or pride. This was a professional who understood restraint, a man who would not shoot unless he was sure. So the Soviet sniper changed the rules. He waited until midday when the light was worst, flat and blinding off the snow. Then he fired again, this time killing a German infantryman far from both their positions. A clean shot, a controlled kill. And then
Deliberately, he let another soldier run. The runner fled exactly as expected, stumbling through snow, shouting, waving his arms. The Soviet sniper tracked him, but did not fire. He wanted the German sniper to see that, to understand that the old pattern was back. He wanted him to relax. The trap was not for the runner, it was for the man watching. The German sniper finally fired. The shot cracked from the rubble, sharp and confident, tearing through the space where the Soviet sniper's head had been moments before. Dirt exploded, stone chips flew, the bullet missed by less than a hand's width. But the Soviet sniper was already gone. He had moved the instant the runner appeared, crawling backward into a second position, prepared days earlier. He had guessed the angle, he had trusted that the German would take the shot, and now he knew exactly where it came from. The duel was no longer theoretical. They traded shots for the rest of the day, never directly at each other, always probing, always testing. Bullets snapped through rubble, punched into walls, shaved edges off broken beams, each man trying to force the other into a mistake. As evening fell, the German sniper tried something new. He went silent. No shots, no movement, nothing. The Soviet sniper expected this. Silence was a weapon too. But silence required confidence. It required belief that time was on your side.
In Stalingrad, time belonged to no one. As darkness settled, the Soviet sniper made a decision that would have horrified his instructors. He moved at night. Snipers were taught never to relocate after dark unless absolutely necessary. Shadows distorted depth. Sounds lied. One misstep could expose everything. But staying meant waiting for daylight, and daylight favored whoever held the better position. He crawled, inches at a time, through broken glass, through frozen mud. He did not look at the German position anymore. He trusted his memory. He trusted the geometry of the street. Halfway there, he stopped. Something was wrong. The silence felt too deliberate, too controlled. The German was not waiting. He was doing the same thing. They were moving toward each other. The Soviet sniper froze, heart pounding so hard he feared it might betray him. He listened past the distant artillery, past the wind, past his own breathing. There. A scrape. Faint. Careful. They were less than 30 meters apart now. At this range, scopes were useless, rifles were clumsy. It would come down to who reacted first. The Soviet sniper slowly raised his rifle, not aiming down the scope, but lining it by instinct. He fired into the darkness where the sound had come from. A scream followed, short, sharp, then silence. He waited, finger ready, expecting return fire. None came. Minutes passed. Then he heard something else. Crawling. The German sniper was alive, wounded, dragging himself away. And once again the Soviet sniper faced a choice. Finish it or let him go. He did not hesitate this time. He fired again. The bullet ended the duel. When dawn came, Red Army infantry advanced cautiously, clearing the ruins. They found the German sniper's body tangled in debris, rifle still clutched in frozen hands. A veteran, older than most, highly trained, a worthy opponent. The Soviet sniper did not celebrate. He simply returned to his unit, wrote one more mark in his notebook, and ate his ration in silence. But the duel changed him. After that day, he stopped letting men escape, not because the tactic had failed, but because the war had changed. The Germans adapted faster now. They learned from fear, just as he had taught them to. The battlefield grew more crowded, more chaotic, less predictable. Fear alone was no longer enough. He continued to fight through the winter, through the slow Soviet counteroffensive, through streets where buildings changed hands multiple times a day.
His kill count rose, but he stopped keeping careful track. Numbers felt meaningless in a city where death piled higher than rubble. In early 1943, after Stalingrad broke the German advance, he was pulled from the line. Not wounded, not punished, promoted. Command wanted instructors, men who understood not just how to shoot, but how to think. He was sent east, away from the front, to train new snipers. There, in cold classrooms and frozen fields, he taught lessons that never appeared in manuals. He taught them that killing was not always the goal, that shaping the enemy's behavior could save more lives than pulling the trigger, that fear, when controlled, could slow an army. He never spoke about mercy, only about choices. The war ground on. Kursk, Ukraine, Poland, Germany itself. The Red Army rolled west, unstoppable now, and snipers became less decisive as artillery and armor took over. By the time Berlin fell, his kind of war was already fading. After the war, he disappeared. No parades, no memoirs, no interviews. His name appeared briefly on a list, attached to a medal citation filled with vague language about bravery and effectiveness. The details were stripped away, the method never mentioned. Official histories preferred heroes who killed cleanly and often, not men who manipulated terror. Years later, German veterans would speak of a sector near Stalingrad where fear felt personal, where men believed they were being watched, chosen, spared, or killed by something unseen. They spoke of a sniper who seemed to decide fates. Most dismissed it as myth, but myths are born from patterns, and patterns come from people. The Soviet sniper lived out his life quietly in a country rebuilding itself from ruins. He hunted again, not men, but animals, returning to forests that remembered him from childhood. When asked about the war, he said little. Once, when pressed, he said only this: "A dead man is silent. A living man tells a story, and stories can change battles." He died without fanfare, without statues or streets named after him, but his legacy lived on in doctrine, in whispers, in the understanding that war is not always fought with bullets. Sometimes it is fought by deciding when not to fire. On the Eastern Front, amid snow and smoke and endless graves, one sniper proved that fear could be sharper than steel, and that letting a man escape could be the deadliest shot of all.